this meeting to
Something like
order.
It's
All
hard.
right, it's Thursday, March 22nd. Thank you guys for coming in tonight. We are going to get started with the budget hearings. We are going to hear from Cheryl with the Community Preservation Committee. Is there a?
No, there's no budget. Do you have a handout for us, or is it in here?
There's that, and there should be a
Oh,
memo as well.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So the memo, well, the Community Preservation Committee met on Monday. We had 5 projects, applications submitted, and they were all approved unanimously. The first is Annie, the town clerk. She asked for, or it was approved for $15,000 to continue the work with her preserving the vital records of the town clerk. The second was the assessors. They started a couple years ago preserving their records, so they were asked for $10,000 to continue that project. We had a project from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries. It's $25,000 to do a study, an improvement study on the fish passage at War Memorial Park.
Oh, I remember going to that as a kid when the fish were running.
Yeah. They would do like an improvement study where they would kind of identify what needs to be done to it to get it, you know.
What you have to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, so there's that, and then Chris put in another application for $125,000 for continued work on War Memorial Park, which is Phase 4, and that was also done years ago. The engineering identified projects, so he's just away at it every year.
Do you know what specifically they would be doing with that?
I do not. I don't have the. I didn't bring the projects, but this year. Soon, hopefully by next week, all the projects will be up on the CPC website.
Okay.
So you'll be able to take a look at it.
What's the URL for that?
It's under, right now it's under this department here, like Concom. So
Conservation,
I think it's kind of hidden a little bit, so I'm hoping to kind of get something a little more called out. Annie Iannatelli said she would help me, where maybe there'd be something where it would kind of come down in the menu,
So
so
you're
you
talking
could actually
about
see it.
On the town's website?
Yeah, oh,
maybe as a
yes,
separate
yes.
department?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it just, because you have to click on their department
And then to find you.
yeah,
it took a
so I
little
think
bit.
it's, it's just not easy. So, but that, hopefully by next week, she said it was pretty easy, that she could scan everything in for me. So, yeah. And then the Old Bridgewater Historical Society asked for $20,000 to do a building and document preservation assessment. Same thing, companies would come in and assess both the buildings and their collections of both their building that they're in and the Keith House. And they've also asked for, I don't know if they've gone ahead and done it yet, but they have asked for $20,000 from Bridgewater, CPC as well, so to complete the project.
So are the $20,000 all for the Keith House?
No, for both buildings.
Both buildings?
Yep, so they would have, if they got, we approved it, it will go to town meeting. If Bridgewater did, then they'd have a total of 40.
What's the 2 buildings, the Keith House and what else?
And it's where the old Bridgewater Historical Society is.
Street.
What street?
Howard's, so.
Howard?
It's,
Howard.
yeah,
Howard.
it's right there. It's kind of like across from the police station.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Where's the other one, Cheryl?
The Keith House?
Yeah. is
That's
that-
on River. Yep.
Okay, I know
Right-
where that is,
yep.
yeah.
Right near Anderson Farm.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
just out of curiosity, so this how is Annie preserving, how do they preserve local town vital records?
For Old Bridgewater?
Well, for the town clerk, we'll start
The
there.
records, yeah.
A company comes in and they take it, and I don't know 100% about it, but they take them and I believe they scan them, and then they also preserve them, and it has to do with like anti-acid.
Sure, so they preserve, so they scan them in and they preserve the paper?
Yes, and I believe she gets a booklet, and I think it comes on disc.
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
that's what she
I-
described it
okay.
a couple years
Yeah.
ago when they started this.
I looked years ago when Nancy started it, and it's been a long time.
Do you recall though how much more she has to do? I forget they had set a number.
Yeah, they had a number to bring them up to date with
It's been like
historical.
maybe 4 years now, 3 or
At least 4 years, yeah. Yep, I'm not
Is that a
positive.
law that we have to preserve them
I don't believe
instead
so.
of digitally? You know, we're
No, I
actually
thought we
doing
had to
paper.
keep the record.
What do you mean digitally? I mean, scanning them in makes
No,
them electronic
This was
documents.
something one of the
But
selectmen
we're
was
dealing
looking
with actual
into too.
paper here.
Well, we have the paper, but they're also scanning them in and making them electronic. Is that correct, Cheryl?
I believe so. I believe
You know,
it's,
why would we keep
has a
the
disc.
books when we can
Because
just-
there's a bond.
Why
have
would
to.
you?
The state
Jeez,
says you
there's
have to.
Yeah.
State says you have.
If you, once you
historic.
scan them,
Yeah, but the law says you have to keep the actual paper documents.
that's what I
The
thought.
law hasn't been updated
Do
for
we have an original of
electronic.
the Declaration of Independence? Oh, no, but we scanned in a copy.
It's in Washington. Sorry.
I mean, what's more valuable?
So, one nice thing is the Old Bridgewater Historical Society has already applied for, they've put the paperwork in to make both buildings, or get them on the National Historic Register.
Oh,
So,
good.
which, I mean, the Keith House really should be.
Yeah, the Keith House really
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah, so they've done a lot of changes over there, yeah, so.
So can you walk us through this?
So, all right, this is a draft. It is not complete. Our preservation consultant was, I believe she was meeting today with the town accountant. I wanted to bring this just to kind of give you an idea, to let you know that we had money in the budget to cover this. And like I said, she hasn't completed everything. She needs to go through and, make sure that all the projects that were completed last year have been taken out and that all the numbers are complete. So this hopefully will be finalized, soon. So,
So does this mean you have 352,000 available to spend that hasn't been designated to anything?
I think it's total.
1.5,
I think it's
or is it the
total.
1.5? What's the totals with reserves? Is that the totals that's on the right-handed column?
Oh, right down here. So this is total spent to date, 1,527,134.
To
That's-
date, like
Since
inception
2008, I think it was.
So the 1.527134 is total spent to date?
To date.
Okay.
Where is that?
It's on the right side.
This one's down here,
Okay, I see.
yeah,
And so right now, you have $352,000.
around about.
Okay,
It is
okay.
like I said, this is a
That's
draft,
okay.
but it's around, this is an approximate number that we have to go forward with.
And do you have the different amounts necessary in the different buckets in order to meet these 5 projects?
Sometimes if you're short, if one bucket, just say historical, is short, say for like Chris's project, you can take money out of the undesignated fund.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they kind of work with that and
Total to spend.
make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
it's just that, well, like, if there's historical money in that bucket, it can't be used for an open space. So, but the undesignated fund could be used to, just say you only had, 30,000 in the historical bucket, you would take the rest from the undesignated
So
reserve
what's-
fund.
Okay.
What's the 1.6 million up top here?
This looks like the total number that we've brought in. So from local surcharges, 1,287,567
Since the beginning.
since the beginning. And then the state, since we have had the CPA, we've brought in, or been awarded, 373,000.
What do we bring in about a year?
Oh,
Is it
it's,
meals tax?
No, this is
No,
a
this is
surcharge on
1%.
excise taxes?
No,
or-
1% on your real
property
estate
yeah.
tax.
Right.
And do we know what that is about for a year?
Yeah, it's a little over $200,000.
I think we usually get around 30 from the state.
So it totals between the two about 227, 230.
Yes.
Did some reading last year. I went to, I think it was the state website, and read about the different buckets and how they have to be used. It was quite interesting. Really.
Yes.
It really was.
Yeah, it's a great program. We've done so much. And the other thing that I'm working on right now is a handout for town meeting that kind of explains the CPC to a lot of people that don't really know how they work and what we actually do or what we don't do. But on one side of it, I listed out all the projects that we have done to date, and it's pretty impressive.
So the balance can continue to grow?
Yes,
Okay, so if
yes,
the
every
town
year.
wanted to
Yep.
Save that money for, I don't know, for some project. I'm not thinking of anything, but.
Yes, you could save. We've been getting more popular every year. So
We just buy land with that money?
you can. We've bought, the Anderson Farm, and last year we did I think it's called the Williams property across the street from the Keith House.
Yes,
Yes.
they finally took that house down,
Yeah.
too. That
Oh, good,
trailer,
the
right?
trailer.
Took that
Trail,
trailer
yeah.
down?
Yeah.
I've been watching, it took
So
a
they have
year.
all kinds of, the Open Space Committee too is really, they've done amazing things over the last couple of years, and they have a lot of plans for that area to do more.
These are all the requests that you got, you didn't have to turn anybody down?
No, nope, nope, this is what we got here.
Does anyone have any other questions on this budget?
No, very interesting.
All right. Well, then, thank you very much for coming in, Cheryl, and having all this information for us.
How can
Hopefully
we
we'll
find
save
out,
that.
I guess Annie would know, and the assessors would know, what the process of preserving, what that means?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to
They
Annie.
bind them and,
Yes, you get a book,
Nice big.
and I swear I remember seeing a disc with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's, all those, the acid-free paper.
Yeah,
all
right,
the-
right.
They seal it, and, so it's
Yeah.
preserved.
Yeah.
The
Will
paper's
it be on
preserved.
display for people to see if they go visit?
I think you can go and
Yeah.
they'll bring you into the
Like Ellis
vault,
Island
right?
has
Is it
like the-
you could go right into the town clerk would take you in and you could go take a look at them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We still don't have that clock over there. It's killing me.
where does
I'm
the
gonna have to
money
bring in
go?
like a big kitchen clock and just put it up.
54.
What's that?
You get your water at Market Basket.
Maybe that's,
There you
but there
go.
used to be a big one right there by
I
the
get you.
screen.
I guess
And I
I'm
keep
not,
looking and it's not
not
there.
held by that, I guess, being the
I see
newbie.
it every 50 minutes.
But I know David can talk to us
6:54.
about some of these other budgets. And then the school is coming in at 7:10.
Well, we're ready for
Well,
them.
Some of them
they
are
might
here.
be here.
I
Yeah.
know that Sarah Smith is
Smith.
here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that song stuck in my head.
So, okay.
This is the right to left budget.
So if you want to skip over. to
Sure.
finance,
Yes, please.
Why don't we start with something easy, like the Finance Committee?
So the first one is 1220, which is the Board of Selectmen
She
budget.
didn't hear me.
All right, you want to tell us what the changes are?
Sure. So, first line, is obviously the selectmen themselves. Next one, appointed official is me and my salary. Next one down is appointed officials. That is a combination of the two ladies that are in the office. And that's down because when Mallory left and we hired somebody else, obviously we brought that new person at a lower rate.
And the line above it, is that contractual?
Yes. The other changes on tuition reimbursement, this was just actually an error last year. The assistant town administrator gets $3,000 for tuition reimbursement, and somehow we just fat-fingered the wrong numbers. Mallory never took advantage of it, but obviously we included it for Tracy. So if she wants to continue her schooling, she can. The next one down is a new one. Right now, all of our inspectors in town, except for the building inspector, uses their personal car. So if the Board of Assessors, if the principal assessor wants to go out, if the Board of Health agent or the Conservation Commission agent, if they want to go out, they use their personal car. We've received some complaints, because think about it, somebody shows up at your house, and they're like, yeah, is that really you? And the other thing is kind of weird if you kind of show up in a, I don't know, whatever you're driving.
Well, it could
So-
send the wrong message either way, too.
It does. So what we want to do is that the old building inspector's car that we do is we take the cars that are being retired from the police department, we turn one into the building inspector car, and then when we have a second vehicle come off, we want to turn this into what we're going to call as a town hall vehicle. So that way, as inspectors need it, we've created a policy at the Board of Selectmen level, and as an inspector needs it, they can sign it out, take the car out, and then return the car.
Christianatelli has a truck available.
If,
Isn't it from 1998?
it
It's
is.
a 99.
Oh, sorry.
It's
So-
99?
Yeah, his is a 99. And the struggle with his truck is two-wheel drive. So,
Yeah.
so with that said, is that we transition our older vehicles, we're not looking to buy something, but obviously we have to put gas in it, and sooner or later,
Yeah.
something's gonna break. And instead of having those people put in for IRS reimbursements, which is a little bit of a higher rate, we think it's better this way.
Well, that's
Whether
going
we-
away, the reimbursement.
Exactly.
It's going away?
Well, they
Yeah.
won't have the right, I mean, they
Employees cannot write off their employee expenses anymore, beginning with 2018 with the new tax law. I just gave a seminar on this. Go ahead, ask me.
Are you kidding? Did they get anything?
No. Employees, you won't be able to write it off on itemized expenses.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
Yeah, when people figure that out, there's going to be a lot of contracts renegotiated, I'm sure. An entertainment portion of meals and entertainment, that's gone too.
So the meals
Meals are still,
are still, but
they're
the,
50% deductible.
Entertainment.
Sorry, we're listening to this.
So bottom line is that obviously we have to put gas in the car, eventually we're gonna have to fix the car.
I
So
don't
we have
use
to
my car
budget
for work,
something.
so
What about insurance for the?
doesn't impact me.
So we have an insurance budget, and now we'll just cover it, so it won't come out of this budget. As you scroll down, consultant services is the next difference, that's down $42.50. The reason being is because in that line was only two consultants. One is for $4,100, which is what we're budgeting. We have a consortium of 20 other towns, actually 19 other towns, or one of 20, and we do a lot of our procurement through there. So we pay $4,100, and one person does all of our bids, holds on to everything, makes sure we complies with the law, and we get really good prices that way because we do it as a part of 20 towns. The second was that difference at $42.50 is last year Anthony had hoped, Selectman Kinningham, Anthony had hoped to sign a contract with a web design company, and they were going to take all these numbers and they were going to put it on our website, and that way you were going to be able to kind of click through it and do some calculations with it and play with it, which was really good.
Oh, that transparency thing.
Correct. The difference is, they kept pushing us to sign the contract. We said we couldn't renegotiate the price. We couldn't sign the contract till we got funding at town meeting. We got funding at town meeting, and all of a sudden they upped the price to $7,700. And so we tried to negotiate, and they said that they got so much, it's again supply and demand. They said they had so much demand that they weren't gonna come down the price.
Yeah.
So we never spent the money. The money will go back to the taxpayer through free cash, and this year we're cutting it from the budget.
So is
It's
it
not
that
worth-
issue dead, or
What's that?
can we still fund it somehow?
Right, is it worth 7,700?
I mean, the selectmen decided that it wasn't, so we can go that route.
All right.
Really?
What do you mean, is it worth 7,700?
Because it was going to really add transparency to the
Oh.
municipal finance of the
I
town.
thought he said 8,100.
Yeah, it was, last year we budgeted $83.50.
Right.
We cut $42.50, because that's how
Right.
much they were charging us. But then after we got approval at town meeting, they then said that they increased the price to $70.
Oh, 7,700, okay, I missed that
So
part, I thought it was
one-timer?
higher.
No, that's an annual expense.
Annual.
Oh, it was annual. Oh, yeah, I could see the argument that
Adds up.
it does add up.
So,
Does it?
And there isn't that big of a demand for it at the moment.
and again, everything that we
Nice
do
idea.
is public. I mean, you
It
need
is.
something,
Yeah.
just let us know.
So
Um,
I don't, just from my understanding, so you're saying these numbers that we're looking at here would be on the website?
Among other things.
Yeah,
among
so
other things?
basically.
And we
for-
would be able to, in these meetings, access it through
No,
computers, or we would stick with the?
well, that's funny.
But-
'cause we're gonna get to that.
I know, yeah,
No,
okay.
what they did was, for example, is they did like per capita per head calculations. So they would say, okay, if you want to know what your per capita expense is in your police department, you would be able to do that. That's what this website was
So
going to
make,
be able to
it
do.
could be more efficient and.
And again, I don't know how many people really want to know what our per capita expense is for our COA, our council on aging. But if you want that information, it was going to break it down for you that way.
Okay.
We didn't see the value at 7,700, we only saw the value at 4,250, so that's why we cut it from the budget.
Okay.
Postage went up $100, because as you know,
Thank you.
postage, the cost of stamps went up. Office supplies went up, because as you see, we always overspend it. Dues and meetings went up because we're going to have a new selectman this year. And usually when you get new selectmen, they want to go to a couple of seminars or classes because they obviously have to learn, what they're doing.
That's
So
a
we
good
budgeted
idea.
for that. And the last one at $2,000, the reason the selectmen approved that is because we have had a discussion about having some type of an annual retirement and recognition party for our employees, which we actually don't do at this point. So we're looking at potentially doing something on an annual basis.
What is that?
That is the
So that's a strategic planning
5732.
expenditure?
Yeah, because,
No.
well, that's where we put it.
We'll call it a strategic plan.
Yeah. I guess I think sidewalks and infrastructure when you say strategic plan.
Yeah, well, maybe we could always plan a different line, but that was the spirit behind the
Yeah.
request. So overall, the budget is down almost $20 million.
And a lot of that is attributable to Mallory's
Well,
salary.
and also not
Yeah.
going with that
Right,
consultant
right.
firm.
Right. All right, does anybody have any other questions on that budget? All right, not hearing any, I will welcome the school committee. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Sorry, we quietly snuck in.
That's okay. We are talking about budget 3,000. Right? I was on it.
Provide the most detail.
All right, you want to tell me all about it?
Yeah, maybe we introduce ourselves because
Yes,
I know
yes.
there's some familiar faces that I know from other reasons, but I don't know if everyone actually knows everyone. So we'll start with the school committee. I'm Molly Smith from the school committee.
Hi, I'm Sue Sullivan.
William Flynn.
Jim Holman.
Our superintendent, Dr. Oakley, she could say her own name, and Mrs. Sarah Smith, our business manager. But would you?
Dan Fox.
Scott Weatherby.
Jerry Screnshy.
Mary Anderson.
Melissa Burns?
And Mo McCarthy.
We know David and our stenographer. So thank you for having us. You guys all got a copy of our budget prior to tonight. We also met with the selectmen last night, as you probably know. So our budget that we presented to you was what we had agreed upon as a committee prior to last night, but there may be one change on here based on what the selectmen suggested last night. So we can go through, have you guys talked about that already, or do you want me to go
The
through it?
committee hasn't, but
Okay. All
maybe
right.
when we get to that line item, we'll address it then.
Okay, great. So our fiscal 2019 budget total budget is $14,907,899, $899, basically minus.
No, actually,
That
I
number.
didn't add the 25 to that one. So.
Oh, good. Okay, so we
so
knew
it's
that.
actually, that's good.
So that number's correct.
It was a mistake, but it's
Okay.
good.
It works with us right now.
Yes.
Of that, we're asking the town for the $12,648,064. This is an operating budget increase of just about 3%. It's actually 2.9%, even though this says 3.1, but that's because we're taking out the 25,000 that were.
I'm sorry, it actually says 4.9.
Yeah, it says 4.9.
So a total increase of 4.9 with the contractual benefits of 218,780, counting as 1.8 of it. So what that is we have 9 retirees this year, and we pay out certain benefits. So we broke those two numbers out, the 2.9 and the 1.8, because yes, our total budget was is
4.7.
4.7% increase overall, but our operating costs increase, we kept down to as low as we could. And we've kind of pulled that number out. I know the selectmen had asked us to just do a contractual increase, and our contractual amounts of an increase would have been a 7.9%. So we did not submit that budget because exactly we didn't. Mary's face says it all.
Sorry.
Yeah.
7.9.
You
You're
wouldn't
right,
have
I
even
would've
had an
just-
appointment
yeah.
with you guys. You would have been like, never mind, don't bother showing up. And as you'll see, there's actually, and just even within in all of those, it was over $900,000 in increases that would have been in there. So as there's been a lot of work done by our, by the
And that
school
was just with contractual increases.
so
Wow.
including,
Service contracts, bus contracts,
Step
contract
insurance.
contracts.
Contract.
Like teacher
All of them,
contracts,
yeah.
um,
School committee stipends.
Out of district.
0 to 0.
Placement, you know, like out of district
Under
placement.
Every
expenses,
contract, yeah.
Other expenses.
Other expenses,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unprecedented.
One of the reasons, and I know you were looking at why did we pull out the operating with the retirement benefits, is because we wanted to show that, and if you take one of these and you can pass it around.
Thank you.
This is just showing you the number of retirements we have this year. It's 9 retirements, and we don't always have a large number like that. So I wanted to look at it. I asked Sarah to put together, for the past several years, how many retirements, and then look at the cost of that. And you can see the color coded shows that IAs is instructional assistants, teachers, staff like custodians, secretaries, cafeteria, stuff like that, and then administration. Obviously, staff and instructional assistants, they don't make as much, so their retirement benefits aren't as much. So if you had a lot of IAs, like you did FY17, it still wasn't as big a jump in the fiscal costs. But this year, we have a lot of AAs. It's really the large amount of teachers, and then the others. So it's not something that happens all the time. This is, I believe, an anomaly. We won't be close to it next year, from what I can anticipate. It's sick leave buyback, which for in the teacher's contract is 25% or with a cap of 45 days.
What do you mean?
25, well, because they have
Upon
a year, they have
retirement.
180, so if they have 180, 25% is 45 days. So it's a cap of 45 days that they can buy back.
If they've
So if
accrued
they-
that
if they
unused sick
accrued
time.
If they've
Up to
accrued.
180, they would only get paid back for 45 of them?
Correct.
Yeah.
Is that an incentive? Well, clearly that's an incentive for them to use them and not.
No.
No,
it's
hopefully
actually
it's an
for them
incentive
not to use them so
accrue
they
them.
can get it when they leave.
Yeah,
Really?
which also keeps down sub costs. and-
Yeah.
What's an IA?
Instructional
I know,
assistant.
but I
Oh,
mean, it's
so
They
it's-
accrue those over the
qualifications.
lifetime of sick time, they don't reset every year.
Correct.
They accrue them over the lifetime, yeah.
Yeah.
And they can't, so when they can only have a max of 180. Instructional assistants are usually for special education, and they help with the needs of kids. Sometimes they're called inclusion aids. So if there's a teacher in a classroom, we put 4 or 5 kids that have special needs, we also have to put an instructional assistant in there to help those kids
Are
out.
they, like degree people or?
They need to have at least an associate's
Okay.
or have passed a test called the Para-Pro test.
So you said that 218,000 was for 9 people?
Yeah.
9 people, it looks like.
And
Maybe-
they only get paid for 45 days?
There's
There are-
also, excuse me, and I didn't finish, so they get the 45, and then teachers have an incentive that, I'm trying to get out forever. It's, what do they call-
Enhanced longevity.
enhanced
The
longevity.
Lexington longevity plan or something.
That was put in that, so it's called enhanced longevity that they can take at year 20, and you get, it's a $10,000 stipend to do extra work or something, you have to have been here 20 years. But if you don't take it, you get it when you walk out the door.
Yep.
If it happens to be a year that people didn't take it, it was before my time, but I think the reason for it when it was put back in, I don't know, the 80s or something.
Long
when it
time
was
ago.
put- I think
Blame it on
was
the 80s.
they were, no, I do. You could take it at year 20 as an option because this is what I was told, that if, that's when you have kids that are getting ready to go to college, and instead of getting something when you walk out the door, you get it now, you can use it for
You
that.
can do it over 3 years.
Or if you don't
Yep.
take it, you could do it over
Yep.
a 3-year period. Well, you actually have to take it over 3 years, so if it's 10, it's like, 3
Ah.
little. But if not, then you get it when you leave.
So it's just $10,000 because you've been there for 20 years.
Yes.
And you can.
Over a 3-year period.
So it looks
yeah.
like this, that there's 4 instructional assistants retiring this year, 3 teachers, and 2 administrators. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and the administration also, and the staff.
We have to, if they work full year, so by law, we have to give them back any unused vacation
Yes.
time.
Personal time, vacation time,
Teachers
and
and
sick
IAs,
time.
we don't have that.
We're
because
just
they don't
doing
have
the
vacation
raw
time.
math, right, Mary? I got $24,000 a person.
I did, but then
Yeah,
if you're
some
saying
teachers can be over 30 with this pay. And same with administration. I don't have the exact
Over 30.
breakdown, but it's also personal information.
If
but-
they,
over
if they get the
30,000.
25, like, if they can get the 45 days plus the
10.
10,
Plus, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not
Yeah.
good, but.
right, well, that's 30,000. If they got the 10, that's 30,000. And then whatever they're,
We don't always have
I'm just assuming.
people, in the past, some years you get a person that retires because they came here from somewhere else, or they made a career changer and they retire at 20 years or 18 years, and we actually like those because
We do like
It's
those."
not an expensive one. So, but,
It is what it is.
it is what it is, but I just wanted to show you that
It's not
it's
normally
not
this
something
much.
that happens every year at this extent, but it's a huge extent.
is 100% of this contractual and it's all going to be paid out? So is there anything else tucked in here?
No, this is what will
That's
be
all the
paid out
contractual
after
benefits.
July 1. And they have to tell, as a matter of fact, they have to tell us by January 15th if they're retiring,
Oh,
okay? If they tell us June 15th and say, you know what, I've decided I'm going to retire, I'm not coming back in September, it goes in the following fiscal year, and they know that because we don't have it, we have to budget for it. And actually, one of the reasons that this is high is because there's 2 people, one left, I think it was the last week of school she came to me, and she's
Yes.
like, I can't do this anymore. Come out here. Sadly. And another one.
It's okay.
on
Good to know what you know.
Yeah, yeah, so there were 2 people like that this year that ended up in this year, even though we already replaced them
Yep,
Oh, gosh.
for this year. They're
Yeah.
not even actually here this year.
yeah. So the
And the
savings
other
aren't
thing
there
with-
on the,
That you can get 1 year into the next is because being in the Mass Teachers Retirement System, and it is something that I wish would be changed, but it's really not the teacher's fault, it's the retirement system's fault. You have to work to your birthday normally, because it's your years of service and your age. So, if you have to work, if your birthday's in March, most people will say, well, I'll go to June. But we have people that, if your birthday's in December, they're like, oh, I'm only gonna stay till December. And it's really hard. One of the things that we're trying to propose, the Superintendent Association, is that if you're gonna go, if your birthday's in the first part of the year, then you can go, you kinda get a gift. You can go in September and we'll give you the time. If it's after, you have to stay till June. That's a legislative thing, so it's not gonna happen. But it can cause a problem with fluctuation and changes, and, like I always try to talk to the teachers and say, but can't you just, you've already been here, can't you just stay?
what's a few more months?
And I think though, sometimes when you make up your mind, you just make up, who knows, but.
Well, sometimes it's health related, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and that's why, people that left on their birthday too, in the first part of the year, but they couldn't get it last year, so it's in this year. It was kind of like the perfect storm, which really wasn't perfect.
No thanks.
I'm
get
sorry.
into it.
I was
Oops,
gonna
sorry.
say, when I look at this, I see $376,000 is really, that's about it that we can examine. Because everything else is contractual.
Right.
When you
And
come
even-
right down
yeah.
to it, yeah.
Yeah.
And
well,
even the 375 is
Actually, even
contractual.
in there, I mean, we also had an increase of step and track changes,
Of
but,
98.
That's, yeah.
but
But that's
through-
part of it.
so with this increase too, if you look at the areas to note, which, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're talking. No, I mean, it's, so yeah, if you, I like to talk sometimes. The second area down is the 598,000 plus is the step and track increases of the teachers, the existing teachers, not the ones that retired. That's the 218. And then we have an increase in the transportation costs and an increase in service contracts.
That's out of your control. I mean,
Right.
It's really.
Right.
But if you look
but-
at that and you add it up, it's actually more than what we're asking for.
Yeah.
And so most people are anticipating what you're gonna ask, but is, well, then how did you do that?
Yeah.
What we tried to do is, with these teachers leaving, or administrators leaving, you know, they're on top step, masters plus 45, and we try to bring in teachers that are first, second step. You have to have a master's today in order to, you know, teach, but they're just not on the top step. So you don't get as much of a savings this year because you have to pay out the benefits, but then the next year you should recoup because they can't, so they're only going from step 2 to step 3, they're not up at step 10.
Right.
And so principals know that this is what your budget is, so if you're hiring 4 people in your building, you can put them any way you want, except you can't go over this number because we added up that if they're all at like second step, then this is what you have. If you want to put 1 at 4 and 1 at 1 and 2, you know, but that's what they get in order to hire them. So we actually already built into the budget, you can't go higher than this. Principals don't always like that because, you know, they're interviewing, they're like, but can we just go, you know, this person's awesome. It's like, yeah, we don't have the money.
Okay.
I think I heard something about 25,000.
So, yeah, so the fifth item on here, those 25,000 is what we had, the committee had come up with to try to fund a school resource officer. And last night, when it was discussed with the selectmen, they were encouraging us to not put it in our budget, to do a warrant for this year, and the goal is to get it into the police budget in future years after this. So that.
So the goal would be to get it into the police budget
Well,
in the future?
Have you discussed this with Vic Flaherty?
Vic,
Warrant,
He
the
was
warrant,
there
if
last
you don't mind for a
No,
minute,
go ahead.
the warrant's not gonna go for 25, it's gonna go to 75.
Right.
And it's gonna be for this year only. And after this year, the conversation is that Chief Flaherty will then include it in his budgets for years to come.
well, that's what he wants.
Yes.
That's what he's hoping.
The
Now-
original proposal by the selectmen was for a warrant article, and I even think that David said, you know, you get it, and then you have to go back the next year, because that's how warrants are done.
Right.
Vix said, I understand that, but his hope would be that over time, it would eventually go into the budget, so that's.
Okay, so it's not we do it 1 year and then it's automatically in the police budget. Okay.
No,
so
I don't think you can do
articles-
that.
Warrant articles have traditionally been used for investment type purchases.
And for one
Capital.
shot deal type things.
Because they come from that free cash, that free stuff that we have.
But it makes sense to fund it that way through a warrant article. That way it's either entirely funded or it's not. And it also gives everybody the choice to vote on it and speak on it at town meeting.
Well, and it will be brought up to that, and I think, you know, I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, see if the town really wants it.
So there's no
Description
possibility.
would be, well, the position would be.
Yeah, I actually just, Anthony asked for that, I just
Yeah.
emailed it to him tonight. There's, if it gets approved, then we would finalize the proposed description that the Safe Schools Committee put through, because we want Vic to make sure that it's okay. But first and foremost, it is a police officer. And Chief Flaherty is very clear that what he's seen in some places is they become, you know, not that teachers are bad, it's just they become more of the teaching staff, and so it's a position that doesn't do what it's supposed to do all the time. So he's very clear that it's first and foremost a police officer. They'll go to roll call. They'll be under the police, you know, guidelines and everything, and it is for safety, not just safety for intruders, but also making sure that doors are propped, that things are working right, that doing the walkthroughs through the schools, working with the discipline piece of kids that might come to school with drugs or have criminal offenses. Also, we have you know, a justice committee that meets of all of the South Shore, and they go and they get a list of all the kids that have been charged with a felony and truancy and those types. So they will add those things, but first and foremost, police officer for safety and making sure that, you know, people aren't opening the door in the back of the school and they get lax and all those things. So keep it. Also training, you know, because we do ALICE training, which is the new way of doing lockdowns and stuff for that, and train the trainer type things, training kids. Also doing programs with kids about substance abuse and about, you know, date rape and about, you know, all those different things. Our text tip line and kind of all inclusive. But
Only at the
primary role
high
is safety.
school or all schools?
Probably the workshops and stuff will be mostly at the high
Yeah,
school and
right,
stuff.
right.
Although, except if it incorporates DARE, that would be in the Howard School. But as far as overseeing the safety, it would be overseeing the safety of all buildings, but the home base would be the high school.
So this would be in addition to DARE. Would this be in addition to the other checks that are currently going on? Is this a completely new position? Or are they taking the police officer that is normally on duty and converting them?
It's a completely new position, but most likely it will be someone that's already there, and then they'll hire someone new to replace that person. Because they'll apply for it within.
And it's additional, it's not in place of what they're currently doing. The police department is going to continue to do what they're doing now because it is working really well. And the walkthroughs and the familiarity that the kids have at all the schools with all the different officers and vice versa, this familiarity that the officers have with our buildings and our students and our staff is really important and something that we're really proud of. And this, we believe, is just going to continue to build on that, but not replace that.
And I want to clarify, because I'm not sure that it's in addition to DARE. I'm under the impression that this person then would also do the DARE.
Oh, okay.
Now, don't quote me on
Right,
it, but
I mean,
but
I
it
guess
kind of
it
makes
makes
sense to me that it would, because they're already, you know, then you'd be taking
there.
two people that would be coming into the schools and taking them away from something, so I'll talk to Vic about that, but in the description that the Safe Schools Committee, it was that person would then take
Would
over
do
the
the
DARE.
same.
Yeah, so, and that kind of makes sense to me.
Okay.
So the only question I have is, I remember several years ago reading about Easton that they were having an override to meet operating expenses, and I thought that was pretty sad. And so I like the idea of a school resource officer, and probably be hard pressed to find a taxpayer in West Bridgewater that doesn't want a police officer in the schools. The question is, who's going to pay for it? And adding more to the taxpayer burden is something that I struggle with.
Of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it should be in the school budget, and not, and with the school budget increasing, I feel like we're here as volunteers to represent the taxpayers. And I do have some questions, because I think that the taxpayers are deserving of answers, so that they can make decisions. We're gonna recommend a budget to the town, and unfortunately, probably not enough people will come to town meeting, and they'll grumble about taxes, but I think that they have a right to know what's making up the expenses, so that they can make a fair and informed decision about whether or not they want to pay that. And I think that the way we're heading in West Bridgewater, because we're struggling with growth, and that's something that the taxpayers may have to swallow at some point, is West Bridgewater's been very fortunate not to raise taxes 2.5% for a very long time, for several years. And we may be heading towards that, and do the taxpayers want that? I mean, we do have a good school system, I'll agree with that, but it's up to the taxpayers what they want to continue to do.
Definitely.
And our job tonight is just to review these numbers, to go through them, make sure we have an understanding, and then it'll go to the meeting. So let's get started with what the changes are.
So, being that these are the changes or the areas to note in the front, when you say let's go through and see
Can we
what,
talk about the first page?
yeah, you can talk, yeah, ask us anything.
Well, I guess my first question is, looking first at it, I couldn't tell how much we were getting in school choice. It shows the school contribution making up the grants, the revolving, but
Yes.
it
Oh, you
doesn't.
want it separated with just the
Oh,
school
because we
choice?
Yeah,
don't, we
because
changed
usually
the wording.
Well, you've
Yes.
done it every year like that. I mean, I
Yes.
have every
Sorry.
budget since I've been on Finance Committee.
Yes, sorry, we changed it a
I
little
should have
this
done
year.
that. I should have
I believe it
put
was
it in parentheses.
One
next to it.
point, actually, hold on, I have my
1.4.
old, that's what I was thinking. 1.4 million, 1.441 million in school choice, 356,000 in grants, and 487,000 in revolving accounts, just rounding.
And you know what? I'll put that in next year.
We
I
took out a
thought
lot of
that
wording.
The wording, when people were reading, I think was like, sometimes, to some people confusing, so I thought if we did it like this, it might make more sense,
Yeah.
but I did leave that out, and that was,
So it was 1.4 just
One
for
point,
the-
yeah, 1.4 million
Is what you're estimating for this budget.
for school choice.
Well, wait a minute.
What
now-
was it for last year, then?
I know. So
I have
the-
last year's budget.
The school choice money, we're using this year what we earned last year? Is that how it works?
Yes, there was a little bit of,
Percentage of
a
it.
yeah.
A percentage
Well,
of it?
actually,
What does that
well,
mean?
no, all of it.
We're using all of it.
Yeah.
There's,
Okay.
after this year, there's no bank, is what I'm trying to say. There's no stabilization fund
we
in school
can't.
choice right now, after we present this budget.
So you mean you're taking 100% of the school choice money and investing it back into this budget and
Correct.
subsidizing, I mean, in theory, subsidizing
Subsidizing.
the town side
Correct.
is where you are.
happen next year?
Hopefully, can keep our choice numbers up. If not, then
Are we having a problem keeping our choice
we're not
numbers
having a
up?
problem.
Oh.
No,
No, we're not having a problem attracting
No.
choice kids. I got 130 applications in the first 2 weeks that we opened it up this year. But people aren't leaving. Kids aren't going to private school. People are moving into town, so we don't, and my promise has always been that we won't increase class. I mean, it's really to fill spaces that we have. If I wanted to, if we had the space, yeah, I could say, you know what, we'll hire an extra teacher at each grade with choice money,
Wouldn't it
and
be
then we can bring
profitable?
more and more in.
It seems like you could get more money
Like, that would be a
hiring
profitable
another teacher and letting
endeavor.
If
kids
there was
in
more
than to.
space.
We just don't have the space, the classroom space.
Yeah, and we're
Well,
not
do
running
they
a
still have the
profitable business, but
MSBA program? That's
I have
other
another
schools.
question. So
I'm gonna
last,
quote you on that.
so according to the Cherry Sheet, estimate, the money
Fiscal
that's
year,
coming in
yeah.
this year for school choice, which was earned last year, is 1.22775.
Correct.
Okay, but you
But
said
you're estimating on
1.441.
We also get money back for special education, and that's a direct reimbursement, and we have to file for that each year.
And it's
For
choice.
special
it's-
education.
it's Choice money that we get back for special education students. And it's in a
Choice money you
different,
get back.
it's in a different line. We have to file for that separately. So for example, if a student comes to us through school choice and they have special needs or their special needs increase, and we have to pay a certain amount of money for services over a certain amount, or if we just can't deal with their placement, like we don't have an appropriate placement for them and we have to put them in and out of district placement, we have to pay that, but then we apply through school choice and then we get it back. Because under the school choice law, the sending district is financially
Responsible.
I remember that.
We just are responsible educationally. So we place them, but we're not financially responsible,
Okay.
which actually is a positive
Yeah.
part of the
But
choice
from
law
a
because,
fiscal
and
point of view.
honestly, it's also, I'm sure in there so that, because there could be discrimination, so people be like,
Right.
well, why would I take this when it's
Right,
gonna cost me
right.
more money?
Right.
And I only get a certain amount, so, but that money isn't your regular choice, we have to actually apply for that, so it ends up being, and then you get that after.
Is that in this, any place?
Yes, you'll see that actually on the very last page with the contributions through the out-of-district placements, page 34. You'll see that we're funding 592,000
That's what we're using.
of that school choice. Some of that is school choice, not all of it. We also have circuit
Page
breaker.
34 is-
35,
is-
Oh, sorry, I'm on my old one.
yeah.
34.
35? 35.
I have two budgets going right now.
So $541,000, is that the number you were looking at? I'm just still trying to understand. I'm just making- trying to make sure I
592,000
understand.
on page 35, the school contribution. Not all of that is school choice, though. That's also a circuit breaker and our 240 sped grant.
You're looking at the 41.
541.
Page 35.
Choice, circuit breaker, what was the other one, I'm sorry?
The 240
The
special
240
education grant.
special education grant, which is a federal grant, that you can use for placements, to put towards placements.
We don't,
I was looking at the total. Okay. I was like, the total.
I actually have it in a narrative if people would like it. I have it with me, but I can give it out after just because everyone will start looking at it now. We won't be paying attention to it. That's the teacher in me.
Engage.
Circuit breaker is a grant as well?
No, it's a revolving account.
Okay.
We have to apply for that also. If special education costs are over $43,000 for a child, so say a kid is in an out-of-district placement and it's over $43,000, then we can apply to the state for circuit breaker relief, and this year we would get up to 65% over that $43,000 back.
Okay.
Now, we have to pay it up front. So if we send a kid out, we have to pay it up front, and then we apply for that. And it's only for placements. Transportation isn't covered.
Okay.
And that's something, I don't know, I have a graph if you want to see it. That's another area that,
I'm just curious, like what? Yeah.
Well, this was one of the
interesting.
things you have to pay for it, and then you get reimbursed a
Right.
certain.
The
yeah, no,
following
I just
year,
wanted to show you.
you get it.
I have something on.
So just to answer my question,
It's very hard to plan.
Yeah.
So it's not in one line item. Is
Well,
that
no,
what you're,
so
are you
I-
looking
so
to
I'm still
see
looking for
the?
the 200,000, I'm just trying to figure out where it is, that's all.
Well, some of
So-
it
It's mostly in
in teachers.
mass non-sped, non-public sped. It's mostly in that,
On that
the
page
454.
35?
Yes, in that 454 is where the majority of that 200,000.
What's 454?
$454,969, the school contribution FY19.
Oh,
In the third
there we
line.
go, a different line completely than I was looking at, okay, all right,
Sorry.
If you look at this,
thank you.
and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but since you brought it up, I'd like
Okay,
to stay on the
thank
same. So this is, every year we have our out-of-district placements, and it's just this lump sum, and we say, it's the law, we have to have out-of-district placements. I thought this would give you a better feel for specifically what this means. I couldn't, someone asked last night, I couldn't put the names of the schools next because some are just
Yeah,
one, and then
right.
it's confidentiality, so that's why that's listed that way. But these are the out-of-district placements we have now. So it's for children that have more severe disabilities than we can handle in our public school. And we always try the least restrictive environment. So first we would send them to maybe a public school that has that program or a collaborative that has that program. Then you might have to go to a private. Then there goes a private evening school and then a residential school. I mean, you always try for the least restrictive environment because that's best for the kid. Because the goal is to be able to have them come back eventually. But you can see that they're costly. And if you look at, there's one, the 321,000, that happened at the end of last year, and it is a situation where it's a, medically fragile youngster in elementary school that it's a 365-day, 24/7. And these are the cases that sometimes I talk about, and I have in like years past, that it's more than education, obviously, that's covered for this child, but right now, the way the law is set up, it's still on the school budget. And until that changes, I mean, most people say, well, we definitely should be responsible for the education piece. But right now, the law is that, no, we're responsible for everything. This was something that came up and, you have to do. Sometimes these kids move into your town in the middle of the year. And this year, one thing like that did happen, so I had to, in November, freeze the budget and stop professional development and take that and use it for stuff, just because we have to pay this. So for these things, if you look at the individual children, you can then apply, and you may get 60%, you may get 50%, may get 40%, over that 43,000. You don't, it's not guaranteed that you get it back. You might get nothing. I know our special ed director was applying for stuff today, extraordinary relief today for a couple of these big ones, and there's a pot of money, and he said he went to the workshop, and I forget,
It's like
not-
5 million or something for the entire state.
But there's 86 people that have already applied for it, 86 districts that have already applied for it, and you don't know how much it is, so you hope you get something. And you don't always. Someone was saying that Dartmouth, they apply every year, and assume they won't get it, and then they got it last year, and so now they're gonna keep applying So I mean, you have to apply for those things, so there's some relief, but it's kind of been one of the underfunded mandates that the state said that they would fund fully, and they don't.
So how do you budget for that? So if you have to apply.
So what's the school's
see, it's
total
not like you
liability?
can
Is it
say,
all these
I'm gonna
lines?
go everything
Add it
over
up?
43, I'm gonna take 65% and plop it in here, because it's not guaranteed you're gonna
It's
get
not
that, right?
guaranteed. We usually estimate around 55%.
Yeah.
You're going to get something.
Okay.
It's just, it used to be 75%, and that's when I started 10 years ago. And so it depends every year on the governor's budget.
And what we've
and-
put in was reimbursement from the previous
Yeah.
year.
Oh,
So
I
we
see.
have that money from the
I
previous, and
see.
we put it into this year.
Gotcha.
So you get it, it's a year behind.
Okay.
Where's that in here?
That is
still on
also
page 35?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's where all circuit breaker goes,
Okay.
because that's what causes the circuit breaker reimbursement.
All right, does anyone have any specific questions on this budget?
Not really, these pages. give you a
Okay,
pretty
I-
good
I have-
breakdown.
Yeah, those are the selectmen asked for that, and those were the service, all the contractual things. And
There was one thing I did want to talk about. I noticed on the front, you only point out a .3 FTE increase. And actually, who else was going to fund? You only had .3 coming out of the school. Where
that
did-
was, the original proposal by the school committee was 25 here, go for an article for 25, and then the police had a 20,000 or 25 grant that they were gonna put into it.
Oh, okay, but if one of them failed, then you wouldn't be able to fund. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, but here you have only one, .3 FTE, but on the next page,
Yep,
it
and
looks
there,
like it's 1.5.
yep, and if you look at the FTE notes, it does break down.
Yeah, that's underneath on FTE notes.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
What line are you on?
If you
We're on
go in that
page
first
one.
page and you look underneath, in the bottom, it says FTE notes.
Yep.
A .2 to service ELL students. The ELL numbers are going up.
Which is
more
English
and more.
language learners.
Excuse me, English language learners. And they're going up, and I have a handy little graph for you.
It's the
Oh,
year
no,
the
we don't see the
graphs.
teacher in you at all.
No, that's good.
You can't say I don't
Very
prepare.
helpful.
So this is the number of English language learners in West Bridgewater. It's English language learner, and FEL is formally English learner, okay? But the new law says that even though they test out of the regular English instruction, we still have to monitor them and work with them and meet with them weekly and so that they don't regress. So it's still, but if you look at so our numbers have increased. We have a 0.8 ELL person right now. We're gonna go to a 1.0. We're hoping that will be enough. Because with, again, the new regs, they've increased the amount of time that you have to give to these kids for English language instruction based on their level of English knowledge. So, for example, it can be anywhere from 45 minutes per day to 2 hours per day. And if it's 2 hours per day, they don't speak any English. They're a level 1. And we had 4 families this year move in or come and live with relatives, 2 from Haiti and 2 from Puerto Rico. Don't speak a stitch of English. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, they need 2 hours a day of pull out just English language instruction, and then everything else is sheltered English immersion, which is within the content classes. And this is not going to be something that goes down. You're getting, I've seen it happen in other towns. I saw it happen in, right in Abington. And it's usually a certain type of population that tends to come to certain areas because their family goes there. And in Abington, it was a big Brazilian population that, and once you have a store and you put a church, and it makes sense because it's a community. And they went in just a couple years from, 15 up to, I think they have over 100 now.
Wow.
So
Brockton looked like.
well, and we're getting a lot of, our highest group now is Haitians. And so it's Haitian Creoles, and I believe we're slowly going to get more. And the reason for that too is because Brockton, that's the highest minority. And we're getting a lot of Haitians coming in from Brockton. So that is going to keep going up. There will be increase in ELL. I'm hoping we can cover it with a 1.0. We may be better off with a 0.5 and still a 1.0, but a 0.5 and a 0.5, because right now that person has to go in all buildings, where it might be better to say you're a high school and you're a. So, we got to figure out how to cover it, but.
Is
So
there any
you
way
got a
to
0.2 increase, so what do you?
It was a point, she was
She
a
was a
0.8.
Okay.
Is there any way to share that resource with any other department in town? I mean, I don't know if the library, they're always talking about come and learn a different language. I didn't know if there's any way of sharing.
As long as, if they're
Resources.
certified,
Yeah.
they'd have to be
I didn't
We
know
do
if there
have to
was
be
a way.
ESL certified.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we can always, what we had to do this year is, because the 2 families came in from Puerto Rico, and we got 2, and we think it's a lot, and we had to change things up. I think it was the city of Worcester got, was it like 350 or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine that going into, how do you even get out
Right.
of that?
Right.
We don't have enough chairs.
We didn't have, we just didn't have enough personnel to do it. So we have a second grade teacher who is duly certified. She also has a license in ESL, and she is giving up her prep period and coming over and working with one of the kids during that time, because we had to cover it. Other than that, we would have probably gone through North River Collaborative and see if they could have gotten us someone to come in, but it was cheaper to do it this way, so.
Okay. So that was 0.2, oh, sorry.
So that's, yep.
That was 0.2 and 0.3 people, and you're adding
Okay,
a whole
so
person.
then, the 1.0 instructional assistant is for an IEP, an individualized ed plan service grid that we know is going to need as this child moves to the next grade. And, instructional assistants can make anywhere, I think it's between 20 and 25,000, but that's a lot less. Hiring a person like that to be with that kid and work with that kid in a one-to-one situation is less. The next step would be to send them out. So it's a way to save money and also keep them in the least restrictive environment. So that's what that is. So we can anticipate sometimes what the requirement's going to be on the IEPs, but it's early, and a lot of our yearly reconvenes, and especially through early intervention, the 3-year-olds that we get, we really don't know about them until the end of the year. Those are the ones that can kind of throw a wrench into it because we don't know what their services are yet. But we do know that this is definitely one. And then that was the .3 school resource officer, which now will be taken out.
Over the past 3 years, how many, would you, and you may not have this information with you, but how many FTEs have you increased in the past 3 years?
I have that.
Hold on, I think
They don't have it. I don't have it
we
here.
have it. I mean, I did it over the last many years, but I'm sure I can quickly add it. I was just looking at it. I know since FY12 we've added quite a few, but
Last year you went from 160.7 to 162.1.
I just added in my
And those
hand.
are
I was
2
drawing on
instructional
it.
assistants.
Yeah, the majority that we have done are instructional assistants, and
Yeah,
we may
we
have
can tell
added a
you-
custodian.
I can tell
just-
you that,
All the people that, those 9 people that were leaving, replaced, right? All of
yes.
them?
No, I had one that was
No, we
actually
had
broken
one that
down by
actually had it by
year.
year.
But these are replacements over and above positions that were already there.
Yeah, so the majority of the additions are instructional assistants that, we've got IEP meetings for the next 3 months, probably at every building, every day, because they have yearly reconvenes, which is how it's done. And if those needs change, or if we have an initial evaluation, and now this kid qualifies, especially, a lot of times, and it's not always a one-to-one, sometimes it's, well, all of a sudden we have kids that moved in and kids that qualified, and all of a sudden in 2nd grade, wow, we have so many more, we can't just have one inclusion class, we're gonna have to have 2 inclusion classes. Well, if you have 2 inclusion classes, you need another aide to go into that inclusion class. Another increase was we added a preschool classroom, and that a couple years ago. But one of those, so there was 2 people, and we had to do that because of legal requirements. And one of those people, though, was paid for by tuition.
Okay.
So even though the FTE is in there,
Mhm.
in the tuition for the preschool would pay for that.
Prior to that, you said if now you had to have 2 inclusion classrooms, so now you had a whole full-time position for 1 instructional assistant. What would happen, and this is just so I can understand, what would happen if you didn't get that instructional assistant?
We would not be in compliance with the kid's IEP, and that's against the law, and the parents would file for a hearing through the BSEA and would be taken to court.
Would there be a way to keep all the inclusion kids in 1 classroom, and it would be difficult but possible?
No, because you can up to, I believe it's 8 or 9 kids. I don't think.
Oh, okay, so there's a, like, per capita
Yeah,
limit per
you can't.
classroom
I
or
couldn't
whatever.
do an inclusion class and put, 17 inclusion kids in the class, because then it's not inclusion.
True.
Are we
You
restricted?
need to have more typical peers
Yeah.
than inclusion kids.
Right,
Are
right.
we restricted by law as to class size?
No. Our contract says we'll strive to not go over 25.
And some, obviously, other districts
the
are
average
much
class
higher
size?
than that, yeah.
Our average class size, if you take it all together,
close.
but see, when you
The high
take it
school's
all
different.
together, it's probably like 18 or 19, but that's because you might have an AP class at the high school that has 12 and high school. But generally elementary, we're like probably between 20 and 25. Every once in a while, and that's why it says strive, because every once in a while, we have a bubble going through. There's a bubble class that always goes through, and so an elementary class ends up with a 26 or a 27. And
Or
if we
people
didn't have
move in through
strive,
the,
then
yeah.
we would have a grievance. So, and every single time we negotiate, they say, we want to change this language to say you keep it at 25. I'm like, we can't. We physically could not do that. We would tie our hands, you just can't do that. They
So-
try, but.
So in districts where they've got 30, 35 kids, is that simply because they don't have the funds to pay for it, even though the striving goes out the window then?
Striving
You
goes
just
out, but
don't
then
have
no,
to-
if you have
That's
to
an
budget contract.
individual contractual item here in
Yeah.
West Bridgewater.
Right, yeah, that's West
They don't
Bridgewater. That's,
have-
we,
That's not a state.
we
Not a
negotiated
state
that.
law.
Okay,
Yeah.
so every district has their own.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the pressure in, like a Lowell, where there's
Right.
so.
And most people probably have something
But it
like
just-
that,
yeah.
but when it comes down, it's kind of like riffing. When you're gonna rip someone, you know, when it's a budgetary reason, you can, you know, do a reduction in force. But if you're getting rid of someone because of cause, they have to know by June 15th. You know, so it's like that. So the same thing would be with class size. But I'm sure, I know there's been like major battles in big cities about stuff like that, because then they'll just do a class action type suit.
I wanted to make sure I fully understood these changes. Did you say something about a change in the transportation contract? What's that?
It just goes up. It's a
It's a
three-year-
contractual
It's a 3-year
increase.
We go to
contract.
bid it, yeah, sorry, every 3 years.
Every 3 years, sometimes
We
can-
added a bus, right? That's
Yeah.
what it, okay.
Yeah. So that's part of,
That's part of this increase?
well, so like, if all the buses went up, then that would be part of it now too. That's part of the
So
contract.
that's that 42,000 there on this page,
Yep.
because you're adding that.
Which page is that?
This is,
Oh, that,
at the
okay.
very end.
I can't, yeah, that I haven't even looked at.
Calls out the
I don't think-
changes.
You may have to come back. This is a lot to swallow in one night.
You gonna get us dinner?
I would prefer to do it over drinks. Let's do
You
it.
have the $12 million budget. I think you should buy dinner.
It's actually 14.
Excuse me, I had just, again, I wish that you would, because you do this every year, and the issue is that, that the numbers, like superintendent or the, I don't want to pick on you, so let's do a,
Why hold back this time?
yeah, why hold back? But on the other hand, it's only fair because David gets beat to death at town meeting, so,
Well, you haven't seen me
Yeah,
get
oh,
beat
I'm-
to death. You've
I'm sure
seen me
you
on
do, too.
Facebook.
that's nothing. That's- So, I have a problem with, it bothers me that you'll put in the appropriation to Crest is one number and the actual is a higher number.
Oh, yeah.
And
we talked
the
about
bottom
that.
line budget, it doesn't work for me because the taxpayer deserves to know what their total liability is gonna be for a position. If you're taking this from another line, that means you didn't need that full other line.
No,
So-
it's
so
out
this
of
is what-
contractual benefits.
Yeah, so we haven't
Okay.
negotiated the contracts for like the principals and the
Because we
superintendents
have,
yet
by
this
law,
year.
have to do evaluations, and it's a very strict evaluation tool from the state. And we're on, administrators are on yearly evaluations, teachers now, it's every 2 years. But it's a strict thing that has to be done, there's dates, I have to be evaluated in public and all that. It has to be done in June, at the end of the year, and then all that, they negotiate us out, or like if you get your goals, then you get a raise based on that. And so they don't, I mean, I suppose they
So
could
to
tell me
cut her
what it
off,
is.
if we put in here the exact amount that we gave her, we would be telling her prior to her evaluation what her increase is.
Well, I mean, I just think that the
Next
liability should be reflected, so where's the contractual
just-
benefits?
Contractual
But also-
benefits.
Where's that?
But also, I mean, another thing is,
What page is that?
It's at the end, contractual benefits.
one other thing though is, I mean, we had a extremely high placement, I'm just gonna say this, last year that we didn't come back to the town for. Every year we come June, May, June, July, we have new placements, we have new costs, we have new everything, and we never come back to you and ask for them. And I'm not saying that we're
But that's why we
hiding
need a bottom
anything.
line budget, because we take it out of professional
Exactly.
development, or we take it out of, and those are the, unfortunately, the things that have to get cut in order to do that.
And we
Right.
go out to bid every year for the special education transportation. I'm going based on what we're doing this year. I understand where you're coming from, but I
I think
just
it's
feel
too
like.
big a budget not to have it be bottom line.
I'm not saying that,
And it's a moving target.
I'm saying that the
Right.
taxpayer, someplace they should be able to see it. I still, where is that contractual benefit line?
Well, there is a
Yeah.
contractual,
Well,
that
it's on-
contractual benefits though,
doesn't
that's the
include it.
retirement. That's
No,
the
but
retirement.
Where's the other one?
But no, that's the retirement one. So when they come to me in June at the end of the year and say, what can we give Patty? I have to comb the budget to see if there are savings in anywhere in this to give her anything.
Well, if you don't, she's gonna sue you, so you have to give
She
it to
won't
her.
sue me.
Not necessarily.
Plus the principals and the secretaries and
Well, the
everybody else.
secretaries are on contract, the teachers are on contract.
Okay, well, the principals, because I do see it in a lot of the principal lines, the Howard principal and the high school principal and the high school secretary, so I won't go
But those were
on.
already budgeted. Those are all.
All the,
I have a presentation request. I mean, every other department, when they meet with their boards and committees, they discuss their budgets and come up to it, and we get a unified spreadsheet from each one. And I appreciate all this detail, and I would still want to receive that. But if there was a way to map your accounts to this Excel budget schedule so that we could look at apples to apples and oranges to oranges each year and be consistent, I think it would help with Jerry's questions.
Okay.
And when the town is looking at it, we might look at it a little differently in that format, because we're starting to get trained on what we're looking for, where are our questions, whereas this format is like all this information, I have no idea what my questions are.
well, it's partly though, it's because we're, you look at all of the small budgets that make up half of the town.
And this is the other half. And we want to understand it too. I understand you have a whole committee to put it together,
Oh, no,
but
I
we
know.
also
I
want
wish-
to.
Or I wish you could come to the school committee meeting when we go over at Lima Line, but also, I think that was videotaped too.
Yeah.
And I don't even need to know line by line, but just if there was,
So what's the template? I don't know what the template
Well, and I
is.
think ours is just such a moving target.
Yeah, it is.
W one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
think ours is just such a moving target because teachers move, IAs move, students move, like, it's not,
But it's still instructional, training, teaching, it's still the same thing. So that would be the same line in our budget, in the format that we look at.
No, because, well, it depends how you want our lines done. Do you want the lines
mean-
done like our pie chart?
I mean, because
No.
we do.
Because that's what
those.
this is. Yeah.
But I think what happens is our line items
That's
are
what this
also
is.
the way they are because of our audit that we get each year from the state. And so,
Oh, yeah, we have
Right,
specific
no, I
ones.
can understand that, but there must be a way to
But that-
map it just once, so it's always the same grouping from year to year.
It is, this.
Right,
People
but
move.
is there a way to group it to our template?
I don't know, because I don't know what your
try.
template is.
but can I go back to that question about where that contractual benefits line is?
I think
That
it's-
one is just the retiring
Okay,
people.
so
It's 18.
is there a line of contractual benefits?
No, that is just for the retirees
Yeah, okay,
this
yeah,
year.
so
Right
is
now,
there another line?
there is nothing budgeted for Patricia next year.
Well, I'm talking
Nothing.
about, but there's other people who get these
There's
bonuses
about
also,
5
principal.
people that we would need to
Okay.
put through.
So where would that come from?
I have to do better on my bidding. I have to do, not better, I have to tighten the bidding for the special education transportation. I have to find it. That's what I have to do.
Okay, so, okay.
Otherwise, if I put it in here, which I gladly will, I'm going to come in with a higher budget. And we're already getting slapped for it. So.
Can I ask?
Well, I'm not sure that you'd need to come in with a higher budget because you're managing to pay it without the higher budget.
But we don't know
We
what those
don't know what's
costs
gonna
are because
happen.
we haven't gone out to bid for sped transportation. You don't go out until the end of the year.
We don't know what's happening with special education.
And with special education transportation, you go out every year. It's not a 3-year contract. The contract that we have for transportation is our regular ed transportation. It's the buses that you see around town. Special ed transportation for the 18 kids that go out of town, you have to go out every year. And those bids don't come out until the end of the year. And
Until we know where
most
they're
of ours,
going.
we go out to bid to North River Collaborative, Lucini's, Bill's Tax and there's a
Yep.
bunch of other companies.
A&A.
But we have to do that every year.
So basically, I have to find it.
How about if I switch to another question? The page 21, the services. Some of the services have gone up from fiscal 18 to fiscal 19.
The maintenance services,
I don't know what it is,
Yes,
so I'm
this is all her-
asking.
that's why there's a description
I have
about
no
the
idea.
maintenance of buildings.
So the Howard services going
And
from
high
7
school.
to 15 and the,
That's, we have some major repairs we have to do at the Howard School, and all of the warranties at the new middle senior high school are out.
Because, yeah.
There are
great.
no warranties anymore. And so there are things we have to fix. So we have to increase the budget for the maintenance of the buildings.
Wow, that went by fast.
Didn't it?
Wow, I can't believe that's already 3 years.
I know.
Can I ask about a line on page 4? So it seems to be an assistant superintendent line.
Yes.
Because-
Is that a new position? I don't see
No,
it from the
it's-
prior year.
It's,
She
there
was
is an
here.
there was an assistant superintendent, she left. And
Yeah, it
I
looks like they're
hired in
leaving,
her
yeah.
place a,
Director of Student
Director of
Services.
Student Services. So the Assistant Superintendent is no longer here, and I just replaced that person with a Director of Student Services, which is under the special education.
Page 20.
So that 112,
Page 28.
was that last year's? And
Yes.
so this year it's 0?
Yep.
I always forget you guys go this way.
Yes, yes,
And
so
it
then if
goes
you look
where?
at page 28, that is the
28.
new Director of Student Services.
Thank you.
If you look at the impacts page, those 3 items, kind of just go over them a little bit.
Oh, that's not our,
You know, the increase here.
yeah.
Um,
But this is, was this the example of it? Because that's not the one I submitted.
Yeah, these numbers are,
So it was in here.
That's not what I submitted.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what that is.
Okay, all right. I'm not gonna-
Sorry.
I'm not gonna-
This is what you gave the
Okay,
selectmen.
all right.
No,
That's
that is
not-
not
I
what
got
I
this crap
gave.
out from this desk. I don't
This
need
is what
more.
I gave to the select.
what about level fund budget
So where do you think
impacts?
this came from?
I think that was their example. or something.
That's the example.
What is it?
That's the example.
That they sent to the department heads. This is what I
About an
submitted.
increase in student activities?
That's what I
Yeah, but that's
submitted.
not-
Oh, yeah, that's something they sent out, yeah.
That's what I
That was
submitted.
it,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I looked at that, so.
Yeah,
I'm
so
okay.
our impact was 964,000.
Not for an example.
What does this pretty blue one mean?
42,000 for a bus.
It looks like it's a list of contracts. Is that showing the increase for each contract,
Yeah.
maybe?
That's all of our contractual obligations.
Isn't that what you were looking for?
The
No,
11 million.
I don't know, but I
So
think
on
that's
a
question.
$15 million budget, almost 12 million of it is contracts. Yeah, so what are we doing here?
Kind of.
It's all contracts.
The rest is basically maintenance and
And maybe
supplies.
you don't want to be here, I don't understand.
No, I'm not saying I don't want to be here. I'm just saying that what's, if
Yeah.
I-
mean,
we
that's
need to
the bottom
discuss
line.
what the contracts are and where they're put together. We're not going to make any significant changes tonight.
No.
The, on page 6, I'm just curious why the data processing was, request, wait a minute. Fiscal 18 appropriation, okay, oh, never mind, I read it backwards, okay, never mind. I think, right? The actual,
Data
yeah, I'm sorry, the
processing?
actual was 73, and yet in 18, you requested 53. And you're requesting
Yes,
53.
that was, I believe, an
Again, okay.
increasing infrastructure that we had to do that year. For,
We
I
went
think it
to
was
a
the new
whole
phone
new,
system.
data system, based on, that we had to update because of the way that our Sims data was put in and all the data entry for the state that we have to put in, we had to upgrade it so that they can get kind of live data that goes up instead of doing the reports for the year. So that was
It
the
was another
Aspen.
mandate.
So that was the Aspen system.
So the 63 is just sort of status quo maintained?
That's normal, yes. Yeah, and that's actually broken down on the contract list too.
So if your budget is about 15 million, 13 million is contracts,
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest portion of what remains? What is everything else?
Maintenance, instructional supplies.
Technology.
Maintenance is
Some
kind
technology.
of, yeah, some technology.
Look at the pie.
I would, yeah, I'd say, I mean, educational supplies are 233,000. So that's every, from pre-K to 12. That's what, 1% of our budget. goes to educational supplies, which is $233,000. And then you have utilities, which is $411,000.
It's not contractual, but
So-
it still
Right.
takes costs.
How
So,
about things
right
like
now-
sports, for instance, where
That's under
so
student
many
activities.
districts are, you don't get any help, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
We have a user
user
fee.
fee.
It's not as crazy as some other towns. It's $100 flat fee
That's
for the
better.
year. But, you know, that's under our student activities. That's 3% of our budget. Because under student activities is athletics, but also clubs.
Yep.
You know, drama club and debate club and
So their stipends.
chess team. And all those things.
Yeah, so I would say to make up that difference, Mary, it's gonna be about the utilities, student activities, and supplies.
And maintenance.
And, yeah,
Well,
maintenance.
not people maintenance,
Building
but
maintenance, yes.
Building maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, the school committee goes over all of these, and you folks have to face the same realities every year, too.
Right here it says building maintenance, $830.
So building maintenance includes.
people,
superintendent-
custodians.
Oh, yes, people.
There's
Not
people,
necessarily-
People,
there's
supplies.
supplies, there's repairs and all that stuff, but there's people in it.
And that's
Are those
contractual,
people
too.
contract too?
Well,
Contracted
they're
in a
not,
day
it's
and
not a
day.
it's not a union
just-
contract,
yep.
but it is.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't have, they're not.
I know, please don't set it up.
All right, does anybody have any other questions?
This is the report that I went over at the beginning of our budget meeting. I did it actually as a PowerPoint, but
Eye-opening.
Thank
I
you
was
for
told it was
coming.
But the YouTube, which is,
So
yeah,
I-
that was very, good.
so I
Same
took-
one, isn't it?
yeah, so I took the PowerPoint and put it in a form of a report. So
Yeah.
basically, it's just kind of the Mass Association of School Committees did a report on all the unfunded and underfunded mandates that have been coming down from the state and the feds in the past several years, and what their financial impact is on school systems, because we're mandated to do these things and there's no funding that comes with it. So I took their report, because some of the things really are for inner city, you know, and might not be appropriate for us, but I took the main things that would affect West Bridgewater schools, and asked Sarah, can we get some data with it? Can we see how this affects us? And in some cases, we could actually put values and things, in some cases we couldn't. But I think it might help get your head around the things that are really the constraints that are on our budget and what's being forced on us, because I really believe that schools are the, you know, most regulated thing in a town through the DESE and the legislature too. So it starts out, and just give a little narrative, but it starts out with, you know, mandate like Chapter 70, that is the worst one of all for us. It's underfunded because there's no rhyme or reason to the calculus of it. There's no one understands. There's one person in the state, I think, that understands the Chapter 70 formula. They've been trying to fix it. Brockton's now probably going to sue again for
Yeah.
the second time. And
But what is this saying? Like,
so what this is saying is, in West Bridgewater, you need to know that only 25% of our school budget is funded by Chapter 70 money, which means that property taxes in this town
are
fund
supporting
the
the
other
rest.
75%. So I get it when people say, but we put so much money. You do. But if you put that money in and we were like East Bridgewater that got over 50% from Chapter 70, you'd have
See, that
more
makes
money.
me crazy.
There's
No
no
rhyme or
equity
reason.
to it, which is why, and I searched, when I first took this job, I searched high and low on how come West Bridgewater, because Avon's the other
Yeah.
one that's low, how come we're so low? And the best answer I got after going through the experts at the association, the superintendent's school committee, was when it went into place in '93, wherever you were, that's where you started from. They didn't equalize everyone out. You started there, and they say it's based on a wealth factor and then net school spending and what you can contribute and all this stuff. But also it was messed up when it started, and for some reason we were low that year. Maybe it was just a weird year, but that's the year they started. So we don't get as much as other people. So this is just kind of showing you that part of the problem with the stress of our budget is because we don't get the state funding that other communities get. And I actually used this first graph is based on what you can go on the DESE website, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and they lump you together with, based on the size of your school, so it's schools districts under 2,000 kids, and similar household income, and these were the schools that come up, and you can see what their Chapter 70 is. Us and Avon, we're at the bottom. Look at Carver, the percentage they get.
Wow.
Okay, so, and we also have a very small N to divide the taxes, because you're a small town,
Right.
okay? So now
Right.
Brockton is fighting because they're saying it's not fair, it's not a fair formula, because there's a disparity because, and they compared it the other day in the paper, it was to Weston, because Weston has the ability to pay more. Well, they do, but Brockton gets
Yeah.
80% of their money through the state.
How
It's
much
just
would
they
it
don't
be,
have a
100?
big, they don't,
I think
and
80
it's like,
stuff, I know.
okay, so are we really that different? But look at the little number of people we have to divide it, and we have to pay 75% for our school.
Yeah.
So the fact, and it's on the end, that our per pupil expenditure in West Bridgewater is just a little over $12,000 per kid, and Brockton is complaining, and theirs is up to 15 or 16 or something like that. And I did a graph with these same towns of the per pupil expenditure, so there's just,
I
chapter
don't ever
70 is
see
a big
that
one.
changing. I mean, the legislature.
They have tried,
They
it
would
went
never
in
change it.
'93, and they've been trying and trying and trying and trying, and they made a few changes a couple years ago, and we did get a little bump in our chapter 70 because of it, but it's not enough. I mean, it's still 25%.
I mean, the reps that are representing East Bridgewater obviously are never gonna cave on that.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, that's a very similar thing to the
Southeastern.
Southeastern Regional, which comes out of our town budget, and every year we look at it and it's like, oh my God, well, if you look at what we pay per kid and what Sharon pays per kid, because they pay less per kid than us, because again, another weird formula who I have to give Eldon Marrera credit for, because for years he tried to fight that and figure out and tried. And what he finally came up with is, you can change it if every one of the towns votes.
Never
Well, if I'm
happened.
in charge, I'm gonna vote for yours to go down
Yeah,
and mine
that's
to go
right.
up, who's gonna do that?
That's right, yeah.
So it's just unfair. So then it just goes into transportation and, if you're a regional district, if you're a Bridgewater Rainham, you're a Whitman Hanson, you get 65% of your transportation costs
Oh, wow.
reimbursed.
That's why some people do regionalize.
Yeah.
Just to
If
get
that
extra money.
if that were us, we would get $236,000 in reimbursement, but they don't reimburse, so that's an unfunded mandate, because we have to bus at least K through 6. And it's not like, some people say, then why don't you just not bus 9 through 12 and save money? Because we're on a tiered system, and you pay for the day for the bus for the full day, so that wouldn't save us any money.
Plus we have, 4 buses? Like, what are you gonna
Yeah.
say, right? It's not even cut out.
Well,
five
at least
buses.
6, I know that.
And then,
5 and a small one.
McKinney-Vento is the homeless, and it's a very wide definition of what it is to be a student who's displaced or homeless. We have to pay for that transportation. So if a kid decides that, or becomes homeless and has been going to West Bridgewater and goes to a shelter or goes and lives with someone else in another town, we have to pay for them to come back to West Bridgewater if they want to. We have to pay the transportation. Well, that's how much is some of them a day?
Some are $60 a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much?
60.
Well, if I
You're
lived down
retired.
in Chatham, you'd have to bring me up.
You would.
We would, and
That's,
we would.
and it's far. I mean, what's the furthest one we ever had? Christine had one that was,
Yeah.
Was it Chelmsford or something?
yeah, it was.
Who would want to do that to their kid? I mean, that's just.
Well,
insane.
sometimes
They wanna
it's not a
keep their kids
choice.
with their friends.
Yeah.
And they're hoping, I think, that
But the time on
eventually
the
they'll
road.
get back.
The time on the road is just,
And then special
Yeah,
education.
they're not good situations.
is in
that's
here.
for sure.
they're not. They're
Aggie
terrible.
home
There's
tutoring,
nowhere.
ELL, curriculum. Curriculum's a big, it's like, well, that's what we do as a school, but you just get everything done. And the DSE says, we're gonna do all new curriculum frameworks. We're going to, we're gonna go to a new test, the POC test. Oh, didn't like it, didn't work. Now let's go to this one. And so teachers are running around, then it's a completely different curriculum. Well, along with a different curriculum, besides having to pay people to rewrite curriculum, along with that is, these instructional supplies and stuff don't match what we're supposed to be teaching the kids now. And they just changed all of the major frameworks. Social studies coming out. They've added a social emotional learning framework that we have to now teach, and a digital learning computer science that we have to add in. So that's money that is not contractual, but we have to do. Technology, professional development, and then the last one is the student management system, the information systems. There's so much data now that they want us to send to the state. Their goal, we always had the student information system data that we would put in. Now every teacher's information is in there, the courses they teach.
And they have to cross-validate.
And they
them
have to
all.
cross-validate, and then they add the MCAS score data, and then their licensure, and so that now they're very close. They're actually there for a lot of it, of looking and saying, and teacher absences and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Everything goes into this portal that we have to put in, so they can say, low scores here, this teacher, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, that's what all
Big
this.
brother.
And do you know how much money to put the infrastructure in, and how many man hours, because we didn't hire an extra person for it. People are just doing extra, it's a lot. Unfunded mandate, And then, so I think it's a good education of education and the state we're in, and I think what it shows is, a lot of the times, and maybe to go to your point, because we're regular, because these things happen, we can't necessarily fit into that same template that everyone else does because of all this that we don't have control. So when we come for money and stuff, and I know there's certain things, I would love to have this or I'd love to have this, but a lot of the constraints are because of this stuff that we can't control, that honestly, except maybe for the curriculum, take away from what our primary goal of education is, which is educating kids. I mean, all the money we're putting into the data collection, all the money putting into buses, I haven't even gotten them in the door yet. So honestly, I think we do a pretty good, considering where our per pupil expenditure is compared to other people, I think we do a pretty good job.
Would you be comfortable, say, putting a stack of these for the taxpayers?
Or at the annual town meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, the more info we found, and you've seen it too, the more information.
Can we print
they-
these off at town hall?
Can I,
Print these at town hall.
My house.
I printed it from my computer. I just sent it and it went.
Yeah, because the more information people get, the golf course is a great example.
You can
More
watch it.
information, the more they're more amenable
People are
to it.
understanding.
You can watch the meeting, the school committee meeting. I forgot what the date was that I went.
It was in February, right after February
February
vacation.
I had to watch it in segments.
About a month ago.
Yeah,
February
it's
20th.
on the
coming, that was
YouTube,
great.
and if people in the town wanted to watch
Yeah,
it,
it's very good. Yeah.
Dr. Oakley walked through all of this,
Yeah.
and it's really.
Could we put a link up of this? Do you send something out prior to town meeting that has information about
Put a link on
town?
Facebook or something, a lot of your videos.
I could put a link on our page.
Yeah, well, because that
It'd
would
open
be
a lot of
free.
eyes, because mine have been opened.
You know what, that's really good. I can put it on
Yeah, it's really.
our website and our Facebook.
Yeah.
So the schools have basically the same problem that the town has,
Yep.
and that the taxpayers, that filters down to the taxpayers, particularly in a town of 2,600 households, or 2,700, is that you're trying to fund very large budgets on the backs of taxpayers.
Yeah,
So-
that's why I see why, the selectmen have always said, we need to have growth, we need to bring in, business, we need to make sure that all the things down in an industrial park are full and those things.
I totally
It's
agree.
the survival of a small town.
Right.
I was talking to my niece, and she goes to another school, not West Bridgewater, and she said that they have a couple of what do you call it, Chromebooks per class. where our kids, I remember you saying have
A
each
one-to-one.
have one, right? So I thought that was
It's a
very
big-
interesting,
Yeah.
you know, because that's. a
And
big
here's the
district.
thing, now that's a mandate because 2019, next spring, every kid in the state will have to take MCAS on a computer.
The
So
lobbyists.
if you don't have computers, so that's why they put it off till 2019. I don't know honestly, I don't know what some of these towns out in Western Mass who still don't have the broadband and the bandwidth
To
to have
begin with,
every
yeah.
kid from grades 3 through 10 on computer because they're, done online at the same time. And those people out there are really screaming about that because they're like, well, what do you mean by 2019?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's really.
but that's really the mandate that took place. And it was, I think, their way of pushing people getting technology.
Yeah, but it's expensive.
It's very
It is
expensive, and they don't,
expensive.
and
We've
you
done a
have to
pretty
keep,
good job
you have to
getting
keep
it.
doing it.
Yeah, both through grants and
Right.
Grants, project, and choice.
I know my cousin teaches in a school in Boston, and they do fundraising through some fundraising thing that you can do in here to get the Chromebooks.
Oh, the GoFundMe
Yeah,
type thing,
It's kind of like that.
yeah.
yeah.
Wrap it up.
So we
All right.
don't have to do all that stuff.
Any
So
other
we're-
questions?
Nope.
All right, then I think you guys are all set. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Good suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, every little bit
Good
helps.
information.
Well, I'll put this up. I like Jerry's suggestion to put it on.
Thanks a lot. I know you guys do a
I
lot
know.
of work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Why
your
would you
time.
say I don't want to be
Okay.
here?
I'm gonna wait till the
Good job on
I
your
talk
part,
to you. It's
too.
still gonna be
Absolutely.
televised, but. Really, why I
Okay.
said
Thank
that.
you. Nice to see you guys.
Take him out.
Thank you.
What are you looking at?
Not a hell of a lot, girl.
Wow.
There you go.
I'll get you for that.
You asked.
You know, you could.
I had that
Thank
answer because it was told to me earlier.
I could just imagine who gave it to you.
Mrs. Anderson, it's always a pleasure.
Always, Jim.
Have a good night.
Good night, too. See you later.
So Meredith, you said before, why are we here if the budget is 70% contractual? Why do we have a finance committee? Why do we have a town meeting? Why bother?
Those are
I mean,
good
we're
Town
questions.
budget is 70%, over 70% contractual. Why
Those
do we
are-
bother?
those are good
We should all
questions.
just go home.
What should change is the contracts. Sitting here and talking about the little nuts and
Well, then we
bolts of
shouldn't
this
be-
budget
then we
isn't
shouldn't-
going to change
Then we
anything.
shouldn't be here at the finance committee. We shouldn't have a town meeting. We should just say to people, hey, it's all contractual. Take it or
No,
leave it.
if we want it to
Frustrating.
change, we need to figure out what that change needs to be. That doesn't mean any one of us doesn't want to be here.
But you said it, not me. You said it. You
My
said, "Why
question
are
was,
we
why
here?"
are we nitpicking over these
Sorry.
small items?
Yeah, because they've already been through it.
It's already, they have a whole committee to go through their
Funny.
budget.
We've got people running for selectmen who, that was their claim to fame on the finance committee, was nitpicking small items. So I'm not really sure, why do we nitpick small items? Why won't we-
Frustration. I
Why do
think
we,
it's
I guess we
frustration.
shouldn't just bother to be here.
I'm just expressing a frustration. I'm not saying I don't want to be here. I'm not saying any of us don't want to be here.
So, I mean, it's all contractual, that's true. It's largely, the town budget is over 70% contractual.
Mostly from contracts. So if we need some of those to change, what do we do?
So it's
Every
change is
town's
slow.
facing the same.
We're facing the same problem.
Right.
And it's frustrating because there's only so much that we can do.
Maybe we could
You're
hire a
on.
special negotiator.
Next.
Oh, but what's interesting, it's actually your budget. So,
Oh, great. Now you want to fight about something else?
so, so budget 1310 is the finance committee. You'll see we level funded it at $3,100 year over year. You don't, however, do you want to discuss what we discussed earlier?
Yeah, we were talking about, we had originally bumped up this budget because the plan was to take some classes. Well, to be honest, the classes happen in November, December, January, and we're not meeting during that time. So I haven't been very good about getting the mail early enough to communicate with everybody to see if we want to go to classes. So there was a discussion of decreasing this budget or talk about what do we want to do next. I mean, we've been talking to all the different departments about where do you see your growth being. I'm more of the paperless mindset, And I think David is as well. I mean, even Melissa alluded to it earlier when she was talking about the big book, not even
Yeah,
knowing that
right.
we were talking about possibly going to iPads or tablets,
I
whichever.
think it's
it
more
ends up being.
fun jotting on the paper.
Well, you can still have a book. I'm just thinking, David was talking about all the man-hours involved, and
It's a lot,
it's
yeah.
a
It's a
lot
lot
to
of
put these
printing
together.
costs and paper, yeah, it seems, and then if you wanna change it, you have to reprint them all instead
Right,
of.
and it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of books to update, and
Yeah.
there's a lot, and David was talking about,
Yeah,
setting
it
up
is.
Google Docs and everybody submitting their budgets, and it all auto-populates, or using macros in Excel. All these different features that more and more of us are getting to know how to use. We can review it at any time. It would be housed on the cloud somewhere, Google Docs or Drive or Dropbox or whatever we ended up using.
Yeah.
Any of us could
1310.
access
Yeah,
it
the
at any
finance
time.
committee one.
And we would see the real time as people make changes, we would know about them.
Yeah,
Which I love that idea.
yeah,
So-
I do too, and
Yeah.
I like the idea that, you could look at it at home before the meeting, a couple days before.
You don't have to carry this
You don't have to
around.
carry it,
Yeah.
And I think it would be easier to configure.
We have them in conservation now, finally.
So just out of curiosity, we could do this you could do it on an iPad. How many people have their own iPad?
I do.
Oh, it's pretty intuitive, isn't it?
I have to fight
I
with my
did.
kids for mine.
I've used them all the time.
No,
I just
you
don't
have
have a
to
personal one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what the thought process was is that you're probably gonna have money left over at the end of this budget. So what I was thinking is that we'd straddle two budget years. So what we would do is at the end of this budget year, we buy 2 or 3 tablets, and then next fiscal year, which is after July 1, we would buy
By the
3 other
balance.
tablets, and that way, come your budget season, we should have hopefully the process up and running for you.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, I like that.
idea.
Anybody have other questions on this budget? Hearing none, let's go to the next.
What do we have? The next one is the Finance Committee Reserve Fund.
Oh, the finance,
Oh, the next one.
And so what that is, especially for the 2 new members, although Scott, you'll remember this from years ago,
It sounds familiar.
is that understand that when we budget as a town, collectively, it's about a $30 million budget at this point. And when we start the budgeting process, it's January. We are budgeting for July of this year through June of the following year. That means at some level, we are trying to identify how we're going to spend that amount of money over 18 months in advance. It's impossible to always be accurate, and obviously things happen. So what you have is what we call a reserve fund, which allows between a vote of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee Reserve, is that if a budget has an issue during the year, it was something that was what they legally call extraordinary and unforeseen, is that we can then come to this fund and be able to transfer into a department. And you saw that a couple of weeks ago when we had I believe it was the IT department that came in, and we had about $1,600 that we had to transfer out. So at this point, that's all that you've spent. So
Did we spend anything for DPW, for forestry?
Not this year, no.
No?
In the
Okay.
past, you have.
For some reason, I thought there was something this year, but maybe there wasn't.
No, for example, last year, because we had a lot of windstorms, we budgeted $20,000 a year for outside services for trees. And we ended up having to spend close to $30,000, because again, you can't budget for storms. We had more windstorms, we came to this department, you guys transferred out the money along with the vote of the Board of Selectmen, went into the forestry department, and we were able to pay that vendor to come in and do additional work. So we budgeted $67,000, and you could see, quite frankly, we've been very, very careful with the money. We haven't come anywhere close to spending it. And the last one is $8,200, which is actually not a budget. It is actually what we are going to receive in from the state for school,
So this is the revenue side.
this
Last
is
one,
partly the revenue.
8,200?
at the very
But
end.
it's also
Yep.
expenses on the second page.
There it
So on
is.
the first page, that is the amount of money that we are expected to receive in from state aid. You will see in the middle of the page that Jerry referred to it earlier, when she said about the school choice, you'll see that that's in there at 1.22 million. And you will see, again, Chapter 70 funds, which is what Dr. Oakley was referring to earlier that we received. And the rest of it we received from the state as well. And you'll see as I'm going by memory, but I want to say it's a little bit down year over year. One thing to keep in mind is this is the governor's budget. The legislature still has to vote on it. By law, they're supposed to have it voted on through June. They almost never do. So we go to town meeting a lot of times with projections, and we kind of hope it hasn't changed. The last couple of years it hasn't, but in years earlier, especially during recessionary times, sometimes it does, and you end up having to go back to town meeting and making an adjustment. The second page, if you flip that page to the next one, those are our charges, because as I always say, is that on one hand they give it, and on the other hand they take it. So there are charges that the state will charges as well. You will see in there, for example, there are county charges, mosquito control being one of them, but those are the charges that we receive that we automatically get billed for. You just have to pay it. It gets charged directly against the treasurer's office, and he just has to pay it. So I have to set that up as part of our budget. The net difference is what our state aid is.
That tuition assessment block there,
For school choice in the charter school,
yeah,
that looks like it's for students that live here going to other towns.
Right.
Sending,
Okay.
yeah.
okay.
Because you can see the school choice income on the earlier page, on the previous
Yes,
page.
yeah, yeah.
So in and
Okay,
out.
all right.
Would Southeastern Regional be a,
They're a separate budget that
be
we,
just, but I mean, just for the school choice?
Nope.
No, it's just a separate.
That is correct. And just to let you know, regional schools cannot receive school choice because school choice is only for a home district. And we should, since it should be at your next meeting that you will have Southeast Regional come in. Their budget is going to be somewhere around $550,000. They're actually down a few dollars year over year.
that's good, because last year they were higher.
That is correct.
Yeah. All right, anybody have any questions on this budget?
So that's 550,000 on top of the other stuff.
That's correct.
Does anybody have any other business to bring before the committee? Before we adjourn, let's just double check our next meeting date. Today is March 22nd, so the next one is April 5th.
So it's not next week, the week after.
And so we'll hear the rest of the budgets at that time.
That'll be your last night to hear the budgets. After that, I think it's April 19th. The budget will actually go before the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then will, they have to, by law, they have to propose a balanced budget to town meeting. The following night will go to you, and you will then start taking your votes and recommendations before it to go to town meeting. As you know, right now, again, I'm just saying this for the new members, you have listened to budget presentations, but you actually haven't taken any votes. That's what you will start that time.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Have